This is a success story, and it's a record of what happens before success comes back. In 2025, everything I built collapsed. Money, leverage, momentum, people I trusted. I didn't go compassionately. I lost it like a hurricane, like a bad dream, with a narcissist woman I was dating who alienated everything and tried to ruin me just because I wouldn't marry her. She infected everything. The new dream house, the 2 new businesses, the fairy tale dream life, the yacht, Puerto Rico beach house, mountain house in Colorado. She didn't go quietly into the night. She was the storm, and I became the monster who ended her and threw all of it away to go ghost and rebuild in beast mode and took all access to me away from her forever. So I drew the man who would get it all back. Me. This is its evidence. This is a drawing of the future prediction. A drawing doesn't predict the future. It reveals intention. This drawing is not about art. It's not about talent. It's not about skill with a pencil. It's about selection. Because long before money returns, long before systems rebuild, long before numbers climb back into place, the decision is already made. This is the man in the drawing, and this is the year he lost everything. The position before the fall. At the beginning of the year, this man was in the strongest position of his life. Not emotionally, not spiritually, structurally. For the first time, everything that normally collapses for people under pressure was stable. His credit wasn't recovering. It was pristine. Solidly in the 800s. Not inflated, not temporary, earned, maintained, locked in place. He had hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash reserves. Not imaginary money, not illiquid assets, real deployable capital. He also had hundreds of thousands more in available business credit. Clean, unused, strategically positioned. No desperation, no looming panic, no late nights doing mental math just to make it through another month. Leverage. That's the word most people misunderstand. Leverage isn't flash. It isn't ego. It isn't optimism. Leverage is calm. It took years of discipline to get there. Years of restraint. Years of not taking shortcuts. Years of saying no to things that felt good in the moment but weakened long-term position. Decisions most people never see because the reward only shows up after the work is done. He didn't stumble into this position. He built it deliberately. And for the first time in a long time, he felt something unfamiliar. Alignment. Not hype. Not motivation. Alignment. The kind that happens when your internal compass and external structure finally point in the same direction. That alignment made him dangerous. Because when a man with leverage believes he's aligned, he doesn't hesitate. He moves. The dream life that stopped demanding anything from the outside, his life looked like freedom. Puerto Rico. Movement. Warm weather. No rigid schedule. A gypsy rhythm most people romanticize. The ability to wake up and decide where to go, who to see, what to do. A life stripped of conventional constraints. No boss. No clock. No fixed identity. But comfort has a quiet predator instinct. Not the obvious danger people warn you about. The subtle one. The kind that whispers, "You've earned this," while slowly dulling your edge. For years, the life worked. It gave space, perspective, recovery, a buffer from past intensity. But at some point, and this matters, it stopped asking anything of him. It stopped demanding discipline. Stopped forcing decisions. Stopped sharpening execution. And when life stops asking, decay begins. Not loudly. Silently. He felt it before he admitted it. A faint internal friction. A sense that something essential wasn't being exercised anymore. Like a muscle that hasn't been used in too long. The dream life didn't collapse because it was bad. It collapsed because it was easy. And then there was the relationship. Intense. Magnetic. Unpredictable. Addictive. The kind of connection that feels cosmic when you're inside it and catastrophic when you step back far enough to see the pattern. 3 years of passion braided tightly with instability. Every high came with a crash. Every promise came with volatility. Every sense of closeness had danger hiding underneath it. But here's the truth most people won't admit unless they've lived it. He didn't stay because he was weak. He stayed because part of him believed there was something worth saving. And because another part of him needed to see it through completely, one way or another. This year was supposed to resolve everything. Either the relationship stabilized and became real, or it ended permanently. There was no middle ground. And that's why the decisions that followed mattered. The decision that burned the boats Colorado wasn't an impulse. It was surgical. He didn't leave Puerto Rico because he failed. He left because comfort had become the enemy. Colorado represented structure, focus, growth, a place where distraction didn't masquerade as freedom, a place where effort had weight again. He dismantled contracts most people would never walk away from. Contracts tied to a lifestyle many people spend their entire lives trying to achieve. He made people angry. Family members questioned his sanity. Friends didn't understand why someone would voluntarily dismantle a life that looked so easy. But ease wasn't the goal anymore. Execution was. He deployed capital, not recklessly, deliberately. A new house, chosen intentionally, not for luxury, but for function. Positioned near the airport on purpose, not convenience, strategy. 2 businesses launched simultaneously. One built entirely for him. One built with her in mind. A future shared. A structure that could give her purpose, stability, and a role beside him instead of orbiting unpredictably around his life. 12 vehicles. Not toys. Assets. A fleet designed for revenue, not appearance. Turo rentals optimized for location and demand. Short-term housing layered on top. Pilots, flight attendants, rotational schedules. Rooms positioned deliberately. Everything fed everything else. The house would support the businesses. The businesses would pay for the house. The systems interlocked. Over $200,000 in cash deployed. Another $80,000 in strategic credit. $100,000 in planned living runway. Not gambling. Architecture. He was calm, focused, clear. And that's when the universe stopped whispering. When destruction becomes the goal. Valentine's Day was the first visible crack. She wanted Miami, a getaway, a return to the old rhythm. But the rhythm had changed. It was time to work, time to build, time to stabilize. He didn't go. And that single boundary exposed everything. She didn't negotiate. She didn't compromise. She exploded. What followed wasn't disappointment. It was threat. If he didn't come, she said she would ruin his life, end him, destroy everything. At the time, he didn't fully register the weight of those words. He thought it was emotional manipulation, a tantrum, a bluff. He had seen volatility before. What he underestimated was how far someone will go when they realize they're losing control. There was also something deeper, a visceral sense that something darker was forming. A feeling that Miami wasn't just a destination, but a setup. A scenario that could end legally, financially, or worse. He chose not to walk into it. That decision cost him everything. When annihilation replaces connection. Once a narcissist decides you're no longer useful, the objective changes. It stops being about love, stops being about connection. It becomes about annihilation. The attacks became relentless. Emotional warfare, lies, manipulation, pressure from every direction. She wasn't trying to win. She was trying to burn everything down. And here's the part most people don't understand until they experience it personally. Some people are willing to destroy their own life if it means destroying yours too. There is no logic in that mindset. No leverage, no reasoning, no compromise. By spring, the pressure wasn't financial. It was psychological. Every day required defense. Every message carried threat. Every silence felt like preparation for the next strike. The businesses didn't fail. Focus failed. Energy failed. Because emotional warfare drains capital faster than bad decisions ever could. He still believed if he just endured long enough, stayed disciplined, stayed steady, things would stabilize. That belief was a mistake. The house built for us. The house became a prison, not because it was empty, but because of what it represented. Every room chosen with us in mind. Every detail reflecting a future that now felt poison. He wasn't just alone. He was trapped inside intention, and that weight crushed him. Years of mobility, freedom, resetting whenever necessary. And now he was anchored, emotionally, financially, psychologically, to something that no longer existed. When his brother finally said it, get rid of it all, take the losses, come back. It cut clean. Because deep down, he knew something even more uncomfortable. If it hadn't collapsed this hard, he would have gone back. He needed the collapse to be violent enough to sever the attachment completely. The universe didn't negotiate. It removed. I drew this man who lost everything in 2025 and will make millions in 2026. Going ghost. When everything finally collapsed, it didn't happen dramatically. There was no final argument that brought closure, no cinematic ending, no clean break. There was only exhaustion, the kind that doesn't feel like tiredness. It feels like depletion, like the system itself is shutting down to prevent further damage, every nerve firing too long, every internal alarm stuck in the on position. That's when he disappeared. Not out of weakness, out of preservation. Going ghost wasn't an emotional reaction. It wasn't avoidance. It was extraction. Strategic withdrawal. The only remaining move that didn't guarantee more damage. No announcements. No explanations. No defending himself to people who couldn't understand the situation anyway. Silence became the shield. He let the noise die on its own. And in that silence, something unfamiliar returned. Stillness. The real losses. The losses weren't clean numbers on a spreadsheet. That's the part people who've never built anything real never understand. Money is measurable. What it represents isn't. Every dollar that evaporated carried time with it. Discipline, restraint, sacrifice, opportunity cost. He didn't just lose money. He lost position, timing, a rare alignment that takes years to recreate. That was the true pain, knowing how strong the setup had been, knowing how rare that position was, knowing how few times in a lifetime everything lines up that cleanly, and watching it collapse anyway. The mind doesn't process that quietly. It replays endlessly. What if I waited? What if I walked away sooner? What if I trusted my instincts instead of bargaining with reality? Those questions don't heal anything. They torture. And for a while he let them. Because pretending the loss didn't hurt would have been dishonest. But eventually something sharper cut through the mental noise. The collapse wasn't random. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't the universe punishing him for ambition. It was a consequence. Not of recklessness, but of underestimating how destructive someone can be when control slips from their hands. That realization hurt. But it clarified everything. Responsibility doesn't mean blame. It means ownership. And ownership is power. Burning it down to save himself. Going back to Puerto Rico wasn't retreat. It was survival. Distance matters when danger becomes invisible. When emotional warfare no longer looks like conflict, but erosion. When staying means bleeding slowly instead of stopping the wound. So he let it go. The house. The businesses as they were designed. The vision tied to us. Not easily. Not cleanly. But decisively. Yes, it meant losses. Financial. Emotional. Ego-driven. The kind that sting deepest because you know how avoidable they could have been. But here's the truth he didn't admit out loud at the time. If it hadn't collapsed exactly that hard, he would have gone back. He would have minimized the danger. He would have negotiated with reality. He would have traded future stability for temporary relief. The collapse severed the attachment completely. He even prayed for it. Be careful what you ask for. Sometimes the universe doesn't heal gently. Sometimes it amputates. The awakening. Once the noise stopped, something else returned. Clarity. For the first time in years, he wasn't reacting to sabotage. He wasn't managing emotional damage. He wasn't operating inside someone else's chaos. He was alone with himself. And that's where the real confrontation happened. Because stripped of distraction, a truth surfaced that had been quietly waiting for over a decade. He hadn't left the mortgage business because it wasn't right for him. He left for loyalty, out of avoidance, out of not wanting to compete with family, out of suppressing his own edge to keep peace. It was noble, and it was self-erasure. The mortgage business had always been his natural lane. Strategic, performance-based, relationship-driven, scalable, rewarding execution above pedigree. And for years, it had kept calling him back. Now, the world had changed. Remote work was normalized. Technology had removed geography. Systems could scale without physical presence. There was no longer a reason to stay away. He finally allowed himself to step back into alignment. Preparation in silence. This time, there was no announcement, no hype, no social declaration, no external validation. He studied hard. The mortgage exam wasn't treated like a hurdle. It was treated like a reacquaintance. He passed in 1 to 2 months. Clean. Focused. Then came the wait. 4 to 5 months for licensing. At the time, it felt like delay. In hindsight, it was protection. Had the license arrived earlier, he would have committed to a scenario that wasn't right. The forced patience allowed alignment to complete itself. By October, it was official, and everything clicked. This wasn't reinvention. It was restoration. What most people missed from the outside, this year looked like failure, lost money, collapsed businesses, broken relationship, reset again. But most people only measure outcomes. They don't see positioning. They didn't see the reestablished online presence, the reclaimed Google profile, the rebuilt personal brand, the restoration of over 10 websites, the launch of new platforms, the revival of coaching, consulting, marketing, and AI-driven systems. Even in one of the worst years of his life emotionally and financially, he rebuilt infrastructure most people never touch in their best years. That's the part that mattered. He didn't just survive. He positioned. The drawing. This is where the drawing enters, not as art, as symbol. The act of drawing wasn't about predicting success. It wasn't superstition. It wasn't fantasy. It was intention made visible, a declaration. I select myself. That's what the drawing represents. Because manifestation isn't about wishing. It's about congruence. The universe doesn't respond to words. It responds to alignment between decision, behavior, and preparation. This drawing wasn't asking the universe for permission. It was notifying it. Manifestation without delusion. There's a difference between fantasy and inevitability. Fantasy wants outcomes without structure. Inevitability arrives when structure is already built. He didn't manifest millions by visualizing cars or houses. He manifested alignment. Skill returned to its natural lane. Distraction removed. Chaos eliminated. Systems rebuilt quietly. The universe doesn't reward desperation. It responds to coherence. And for the first time in years, everything lined up again. Not emotionally. Structurally. Why 2026 is non-negotiable. This year broke him, but it didn't beat him. It snapped him out of a 10-year funk built from avoidance, comfort, and misplaced loyalty. It forced him to confront consequences he had been delaying. It stripped away distractions that never should have survived the next version of him anyway. The pain was unbearable at times, but it was necessary because it brought the monster back online. Not rage, not recklessness, decisive clarity. He no longer negotiates with reality, no longer delays alignment, no longer builds his future around anyone else's instability. This year was supposed to be his year. He screwed it up, and that's exactly why next year is his. Not because of hope, because of inevitability. The drawing isn't a dream, it's a receipt. 2026 isn't a wish, it's already selected.